All right, boys and girls, so today is Tuesday, February 6th, and this is your math assignment for today. So you should have already taken your reading field test this morning, and what we're going to go back and do is remember how to multiply with decimals using larger numbers. So what I thought I would do for you is I would go ahead and just scroll on down to the very last row. And our directions today say make an easy estimate and then go back and solve. So remember, boys and girls, when we're estimating, we want to round it to something easy and quick. So when I see 1 in 6400ths, I'm going to think about the number 2. And I'm going to keep 20, or I'm going to say 23. I could keep the number 23 because multiplying by 2 would be pretty easy, or I could just change it to 20. Either way, when I have two groups of that, I have something that's close to 40. So what I need to remember is that my answer should be relatively close to the number 40. Now what I have is 1 in 6400ths, and that is being multiplied by 23. So whenever we're multiplying by multi-digits, we always want to start with the digit in the ones place. So that's going to be 3 times 4, then 3 times 6, then 3 times 1. So 3 times 4 is going to give you 12. So write your 2 and carry your 1. And 3 times 6 is going to be 18, plus 1 more will give you 19. And then 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 more gives you 4. So you're going to cross out these numbers that you carried to regroup, and then you're going to go ahead and put your 0 placeholder down. Now I'm going to move to the digit in the tens place, and I'm going to multiply everything starting at my smallest place value and moving to the left. So 2 times 4 is 8, 2 times 6 is 12, and 2 times 1 is 2. Now that I have these two partial products, I'm going to add them together. So 2 plus 0 is 2, 8 plus 9 is 17, 2 plus 4 is 6, plus 2 plus 1 more makes 7, and 2 plus nothing is 2. Now I've got to bump my decimal over, so this would be 2 places to bump it over, 2 places to bump that over. And I think to myself, well, is that really very close to 40? In some ways, it's pretty close. When I go back and think about how far away 1 in 6400ths is from the number 2, this does make sense. Because if I rounded this to 1.5 and I doubled it, then that would give me an answer of 30. And that definitely is very close. Don't forget to box in your answer on your paper. Alright, now if you're needing help on the next one, I'll go ahead and give you some help on this too. So we have 77 and 8/10, and we're multiplying that by 7.5. And so when I think about an easy estimate for 77 and 8/10, I'm thinking, well, 80 is pretty close, and 7.5 is on its way to being 8. So 80 times 8. And if you know what 8 times 8 is, which is 64, then you know 80 times 8 is 640. So something to keep in mind is when I get my final answer, my answer should be pretty close to 640. Alright, so let's move on over and work on our exact. We have 5 times 8. And 5 times 8 is 40, so write your 0 and carry your 4. 5 times 7 is 35, plus 4 more would be 39. And 5 times 7 is 35, plus 3 more would give you 38. Cross out these numbers on top so we don't reuse them again. Put your 0 placeholder down, and we're going to multiply by the next digit. 7 times 8 is 56. 7 times 7 is 49, plus 5 more gives you 54. And 7 times 7 is 49, plus 5 would give you 54. Now that we have our two partial products, we're ready to add. Boys and girls, just make sure that you're adding correctly. 0 plus 0 is 0. 6 plus 9 is 15. 4 plus 8 is 12. Plus 1 more makes 13. 4 plus 3 is 7. Plus 1 more makes 8. And 5 plus nothing is 5. Now when I go back to move my decimal over, because 640 and this number are nowhere close to each other, I think to myself I have 2 places behind the decimal, so I'm going to bump my answer over 2 place values. Tenths, hundredths. And 583 is close enough to the number 640, mainly because we are making sure that when we're estimating, these values are both increasing and they're high values. So 640 is a high estimate. Go ahead and box in your answer. Now if you want to pause the video, you can, and try out the last 2, and then you could come back and check your work with mine. I'll give you a minute to pause and solve. Okay, so an easy estimate for 83 and 1/10 is just going to be 80. 63 would probably be best as 60. And then when we multiply these, we can think to ourselves, well, what is 8 times 6? 8 times 6 is going to give me 48. And 80 times 6 is going to be 480. 80 times 60 is going to be 4,800. So my answer ought to be pretty close to that. It's going to be in the thousands, multiple thousands. All right, so I'm going to go over and work on my exact answer. So 3 times 1 is 3, 3 times 3 is 9, and 3 times 8 is 24. Put your 0 down. 6 times 1 is 6, 6 times 3 is 18. 6 times 8 is 48, plus 1 makes 49. Now that I have the 2 partial products, I'm going to add them together. 3, 15, 13, 12, and 5. Now I've got to bump that decimal place over 1 place value, so I'm going to bump it over 1 place value. And this answer ends up being 5,235 and 3/10. Make sure that the person grading your paper can tell the difference between your comma and your decimal. And is that reasonable? Well, that does make a reasonable answer because 83 is higher than 80 and 60 is lower than 63. So the fact that my exact answer is larger than my estimate makes good sense. Alright, if you need to pause the video before to try to solve this one, you can. Otherwise, if you need to check your work, just listen with me. 1 and 37 hundredths might as well be 1, and 3 and 6/10 might as well be 4. So I'm going to call this 1 times 4. So my answer should be pretty close to 4. Now we're going to multiply 6 times 7. 6 times 7 is going to give me 42. 6 times 3 is 18. Plus 4 more gives me 22. And 6 times 1 is 6. Plus 2 more is 8. Cross those numbers out on top so you don't reuse them. Put down your 0 placeholder. And we're going to multiply by the value 3. 3 times 7 is 21. 3 times 3 is 9, plus 2 more makes 11. And 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 more makes 4. Now that I have the two partial products, I'm ready to add these together. 2, 3, 9, and 4. And I'm going to go back and count how many values are behind the decimal. There's tenths, hundredths, thousandths. Ooh, thousandths. Let's bump the decimal over 3 place values. 1, 2, 3. 4 and 932 thousandths is pretty close to the number 4, especially when we think about rounding 1 and 37 hundredths down to the number 1 and bumping the number 3 and 6/10 up to the number 4. This is a pretty close estimate, and I like it. Now what you need to do is you need to go back to the top and you need to do the same thing for every problem. This will give you 4, 8, 12 to do independently, and these will be graded for a daily grade. Do your best and make sure you write neatly.